A long time ago, in a small village named Kamkaya, a village surrounded by forests and hills, there lived a woman named Jamina. She was the most beautiful woman in the village. Her skin glowed, her hair shined, and her laughter could be heard from far away. The men in the village loved her, and she enjoyed their company. She danced with them, laughed with them, and sometimes stayed with them at night. She was a carefree young woman. Jamina was known throughout the village for her striking beauty, her charm, and her free-spirited nature. She was adored by the men, and the women both admired and envied her. Mina, however, did not believe in the conventional idea of marriage. To her, love was something to be experienced in the moment, and she welcomed the attention of the men around her. Jamina spent her days and nights with any man who caught her eye. There were no boundaries in her heart or mind. She danced with them, laughed with them, and more often than not, she would end up sleeping with them. The village men adored her, but none of them seemed to capture her heart. She never felt that true love she had heard about in stories, so she continued on her path, seeking excitement and passion wherever it could be found. The women in the village were jealous. She will never find a husband, they said. The villagers whispered about her wayward ways. The older women would frown upon her behavior, and the young maidens, though secretly jealous of the attention she received, scorned her as a woman of no morals. They saw Jamina's actions as disgraceful, but she didn't care. For her, life was about freedom, and love was something to be experienced, not bound by society's rules. She was happy, she was free. Then one day, a man named Idris arrived in the village from a neighboring town. He was handsome, noble, and different from the men Jamina had known. He treated her with a kindness that she hadn't encountered before, and soon, Jamina found herself drawn to him. He was unlike the others, and she wondered if perhaps this could be the true love she had been searching for all along. After spending more time together, Jamina decided to marry Idris. When Idris asked her to marry him, she said yes. But her past was not something she could easily escape. The villagers, especially the young maidens who had once envied her, began to gossip even more when they saw her marry Idris, a man of great wealth. They couldn't believe that such a man would marry someone like Jamina, who had slept with every man who came her way. One of these jealous maidens, who had always watched Jamina with disdain, decided to take matters into her own hands. She went to Idris and whispered in his ear, telling him that Jamina had been with every man in the village before him. She painted Jamina as a woman of no virtue, unworthy of his love. Also, some of the villagers whispered to Idris. Jamina has been with every man here, they told him. Idris, once smitten with Jamina, was now filled with doubt and anger. He couldn't erase the images the maiden had painted for him. He changed. He became cold. He started to question everything. Why would he marry a woman with such a past? As time went on, his heart turned to bitterness, and he used Jamina's past to belittle her in every argument, reminding her of her previous relationships. Jamina, who had once been carefree and full of life, now felt trapped. She loved Idris, but his accusations and constant reminders of her past wore her down. He no longer saw her as the woman he had once adored. One day, in a fit of rage, Idris sent her away, telling her to leave his house and never return. Jamina, heartbroken and devastated, left, feeling like her world had crumbled. As she walked back to her father's house, the village buzzed with gossip. Some spoke of her disgrace, while others pitied her. The young maidens who had always envied her now relished in her downfall, frequently gathering near her hut to gossip about her shame. They would laugh, mocking how Idris had sent her away. They took pleasure in her misery, unable to comprehend the pain she was truly feeling. Jamina, lost and empty, cried for days in her hut and worked tirelessly in the fields to distract herself. She couldn't escape the pain, and the harsh whispers of the villagers cut her deeper than any wound. It was in the quiet of one of her long walks back from the farm that she met an old woman who seemed to know her name. As Jamina walked through the forest, she met an old woman. "Jamina," the old woman called softly. Startled, Jamina stopped in her tracks. "Do I know you, grandmother?" she asked. The old woman smiled, her face wrinkled with age and wisdom. "I've been watching you, child. You've carried a heavy burden, but you are not alone. You are part of something greater than you know." Jamina, still in shock, offered to help the old woman with the heavy load on her head. "Please, let me carry that for you," she said. The old woman shook her head and then looked Jamina deeply in the eyes. "I know why you suffer," the woman said. "The gods have hidden your true purpose." "What purpose, godmother?" "I think the gods hate me." "Oh no, my child, don't say that. Now come with me." They both arrived at the old woman's shrine. "I am finished," screamed Jamina. "No, child. You are not, rather you are blessed and chosen. But I have a question for you. Why did you marry?" Jamina hung her head, her voice filled with regret. "I thought he was the one. But now I realize that no man could ever want a woman like me. I have lived a wayward life, and the gods have punished me." The old woman smiled gently. "No, Jamina. You have not been punished. You were made to seem worthless in the eyes of men because the gods have a plan for you. You see, the throne hunters have long searched for the one who would bear the next ruler of the land. They wanted to kill anyone who would give birth to the child of prophecy, and so the gods made you seem like a woman of no value in the eyes of the village men." Jamina's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? Why would the gods do that?" The old woman's voice grew serious. "The child that you will bear is destined to be a great king. You are meant to give birth to a great king. The gods made you appear useless in the eyes of men to protect you from those who would harm your child. The village men do not understand, but you are the one chosen by the gods. If the throne hunters knew who you were, they would have killed you." Jamina stood in stunned silence, unable to process the old woman's words. Why would the gods allow me to suffer so? Why would they let me live this life of disgrace? The old woman placed a hand on Jamina's shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "You were never meant to be scorned, Jamina. You were meant to carry the child who will change the fate of this land. The gods have protected you, not punished you. They have made you a vessel for greatness." That night, as Jamina slept, she felt a warm light fill her body. Jamina's life began to shift after that moment. One fateful night, she felt a strange presence fill her heart. It was as though the spirit of the gods were with her, guiding her, telling her that the time had come. She became pregnant, though no man had touched her. Jamina's pregnancy baffled the villagers, who mocked her even more, accusing her of lying or being cursed. But the truth was far beyond their understanding. The villagers, unable to accept her fate, forced her out of the village. Her father, heartbroken but understanding the prophecy, knew that Jamina's journey was far from over. He knew she was carrying the child who would change the course of history. Jamina gave birth to a son and named him Umar. He was no ordinary child. From the moment he was born, strange things happened. Most babies take months to crawl, but Umar stood on his feet when he was only a month old. He was different. He was strong, powerful. Jamina gasped as she saw her baby take his first steps across the hut. The villagers called it witchcraft. But Jamina smiled. She knew it was a sign of power. One day, a little girl in the village fell sick. Her body burned with fever, and no medicine could help her. Her mother wept beside her. Umar's tiny hands placed his tiny hands on the girl's forehead. Within seconds, the fever disappeared. The villagers gasped in fear. "This child is strange," they whispered. By the time he was 7, Umar was already using his powers to protect Jamina from those who would try to harm her. Anyone who dared to insult or threaten his mother was swiftly dealt with by Umar, who possessed abilities no ordinary child should have. Umar and Jamina returned to their own village. The villagers were shocked to see them. They had heard rumors of Jamina's child, but none could have guessed the true power of the boy. When Umar was 7, a group of drunk men came to Jamina's hut in her father's house. "She is a woman of shame," they laughed. "Let's teach her a lesson." They grabbed Jamina, trying to drag her out. Suddenly, a strong wind blew through the hut. The men screamed as an invisible force threw them into the air and knocked them down. They ran away, terrified. Jamina hugged Umar, knowing it was his power that had saved her. The hidden guardian of the village. As Umar grew, he continued to protect the village, without them knowing it was him. He was the chosen king and a god in human form. One night, thieves came to steal from the village. They moved through the shadows, their knives ready. Suddenly, they heard footsteps behind them. But when they turned around, no one was there. A great force knocked them down one by one. They woke up in the morning with broken weapons and aching bodies. They ran away, never to return. The villagers woke up confused. "Who protected us?" they asked. No one knew it was Umar. A group of young men in the village liked to bully the weak. One day, they pushed an old man to the ground and laughed. That night, as they slept, a shadow entered their huts. By morning, they woke up with bruises and swollen faces. "What happened to us?" they cried. The villagers shook their heads. "The gods have punished them," they said. But it was Umar who had silently delivered justice. The throne hunters did not expect Umar to be the one they had been searching for, but they soon realized their mistake. They saw him as an enemy, an evil child. Yet they did not know that he was the chosen one, the true heir to the throne. They attacked the village to find and kill the chosen king in anger, instructed by the evil king of the 7 kingdoms. They killed all the young boys between the age of 10 to 16. They came in mass, but Umar finished them all and the surviving ones ran. When Umar turned 17, now the time had come to take over the kingdom. The gods released his height, and he grew overnight. The throne hunters finally came to the village, fortified and prepared to fight him and also to kill the child of prophecy. They had been looking for the child of prophecy, the one who would become a great king. The soldiers that escaped from the last attack saw him and shouted. "He is here," they shouted. The village trembled in fear. The hunters pointed at Umar. "This boy must die before he takes the throne," they shouted. Jamina gasped. It was time. The hunters charged at Umar, swords raised. But Umar did not move. As the first man swung his sword, Umar raised his hand. The sword shattered into dust. The ground trembled beneath them. The sky darkened. The hunters screamed as a great wind lifted them into the air and threw them far away. The villagers fell to their knees in shock. "This boy is not ordinary," they whispered. Umar stepped forward. His voice echoed across the land. "I am the chosen one," he said. "I will protect this village. I will protect this kingdom." The villagers, who once mocked Jamina, now bowed before her son. "Our king," they whispered. Jamina looked at her son, tears in her eyes. She had been cast out, shamed, and rejected. But now, the son she had carried in pain was the ruler they all bowed to. And the village would never forget Jamina, the woman they once scorned, but who had given birth to the greatest king